Okay, let's dirty this guy up. So our two main objectives are to add more, or mainly three objectives are to add a darker damage type texture to our heavy damage, to add a overall grunge map to break up the nice and cleanness of the actual model, and to add some more prominent damage, scarring, carbon scoring kind of effects that we want here. Alright, so let's just get into it. Alright, so I'm going to hide my normal, and we're going to go into my color group. Alright, to be honest, I think I'm going to take a little shortcut and take my normal map of my damage texture. I'll duplicate it, and I'm going to bring it in, that duplicated normal map into my color group. Alright, at first it makes it start to look a little less believable. Alright, but we can go in and make some corrections to it, and with the normal maps different color and hue shifts, we can still kind of retain the individuality of each little bit of detail in this. But if we can change the hue and saturation and get rid of some of this blue, we can make it stop looking like a like some kind of paint factory exploded all over it. So let's go in to adjustments and go to variations. Let's add a yellow and red and darken it twice, and we get something like this. Now it's starting to look a little bit like rust or something, which is, I guess, pretty good. Next, we need to go in and isolate this heavy purple right here. We don't want something like this. So I'm going to go to Image Adjustments and Replace Color. I'm going to use my scrubber here to select the purple. And I'm going to bring my fuzziness all the way up to 200. And I'm simply going to go to my replacement color and make it something kind of dark. Alright, we'll hit OK. And you might have to do it a few times just to get rid of all that purple. There we go. Just make it kind of a dark brown. Alright, great. Well, that looks like it's about good. I don't see any hardcore purple in here anymore. Next, we got to fix the glaring saturation of this map. So I'll go to Hue and Saturation. I'll pull the saturation way down low and bring down the lightness, the light way down low. Make it really dark. Alright. And as we can already see, we're starting to have a texture that is based off our normal map. So we still have a little bit of color variation that matches the actual detail of our damage here. And I might go in and increase my contrast, darken it a little bit, and I think we're good on the damage now. I'm sort of happy with that. So let's just do a mask save. Go all the way up to my mask. I'll hide that, collapse that. Let's do a mask save and let's see what we get in Marmoset. Is it going to do it for me? What's the deal here? Alright, let's try it again. Alright, here we go. Now we have a darker type of damage on our model here, and we can even go in and desaturate it and darken it even more if we choose. There we go. But for all intents and purposes, we now have a little bit of separation between the damage and the original model here. I want to go in and hide my mask, go into my color, and I think I will desaturate it just a little bit more. I don't want it too red, so I'll go to Hue and Saturation, desaturate it by about 50. Maybe, there we go. Alright, great. So there's my damage texture. I got a nice diffuse on there. Next, I want to go back online, and I'm going to grab a grunge map now. Okay. So let's do that. And CG Textures has some nice grunge maps. They have a whole subcategory dedicated to grunge. And let's just go to Grunge Maps 143. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to use these to overlay some dirt and grime onto our model here. Alright, just pick the one that jumps out at me as the one that I want to have. Alright. I saw one up here I thought I liked. I'll go with this one. Alright. We'll just go with the small one again. Save it. Alright, let me save here. X out of this other one right there. And now we're going to have to go and get my grunge map and make it seamless. And we're just going to lay it over everything. So, remember how to make a seamless? We go to Filter, Other, Offset, and with these values set whatever way you want it, I now have my seams in the middle of my picture now, and I can use my clone brush to go in and paint out these little seams here. So I'm going to use my clone brush. It's not perfect, but a little bit of finagling. Maybe get some larger detail in here. Break up some of that. There we go. Now we have a seamless grunge map. So I'm just going to select all and cut it. And we're going to start laying it on top of everything. So we'll call this Grunge 1. I might add 2 grunge maps, so I'm going to call it Grunge 1. Copy and paste. And we'll just fit it right up here in the top corner. Let me go ahead and pause so I can get this distributed across the whole piece. Alright, so with my grunge map now distributed evenly across my whole piece, let's try and make a filter to make it look more natural. Maybe an overlay. This will kind of retain some of the color information we have going on with it, and we can decrease the opacity as we please. I think this will add some nice variation to our original base texture that we picked. And I'm going to go up to my mask layer, and I'm going to pick my UV island and just get rid of the excess grunge map. So with all my UV islands selected through that mask I have, I'm going to do an inverse select, press delete. There we go. I'm even going to go up to this front wall here, do the same thing. Inverse select, delete. Oh, never mind. Looks like it deleted everything. I'll just undo that. There we go. So now my grunge map is in place. I have my damage texture. I can even take my grunge map and do some hue shifts if I want. Let me just lower the opacity a little bit. So this is without grunge map. This is with it. As you notice, it's kind of shifting my hue in a direction that wasn't my idea with the base. So I'm going to come in and make it a little bit cooler. I think it's a little too red. So let's shift it to the blue a little bit. So just play with your hue slider until you find the sweet spot. Try to get it back as to the normal spot as you had it in the first place. Oh yeah, it's a little purple. There we go. There's my red coming back a little bit. Of course, we can also desaturate. So we just have some of the knick-knack information. But I kind of like my grunge maps, adding a little bit of hue variation. It adds a little bit more believability there. Alright, so we're going to save it. And let's go back in now and see what we have. I'm always previewing my stuff. That's why that mass save macro is so key, because instead of having to go back through and save out each map individually each time, I can just hit one button and Marmoset automatically updates. Alright, cool. We're getting somewhere with this. It's starting to look a little bit more believable. You always want to have a little bit of grunge on stuff, otherwise it's just going to look like you took pictures from CG textures and slapped them on a model and called it a day. That's never a good thing. Alright, great. A little bit, yeah, I like this. It's starting to make it look more like concrete or so, but maybe our spec maps can save us from that look. So we'll just see what we can do. Alright, so let's go in and let's just paint some damage now, like some carbon scoring or where an explosion ripped it apart and it left a little bit of ash or soot on there. And we'll just put it right on top of our grunge, and we'll call this um, carbon scoring. I guess that's the way you spell that. And I'm going to go grab a brush, and I'm going to grab my little charcoal or a little stencil right here that's not pure and ground. And I'm going to start with not perfectly black, but something like that. And we'll just go in and, yeah, maybe I'll go a little bit darker. And I like adding it just in splotches, like I'm sponging it on. I don't like to drag because it doesn't really look like carbon scoring anymore. So I like to add it where the damage was. And this is just our first pass. Looks like I sponged it a little too much there. I like to add it where most of my damage was because that's where most of the fire would be. That would cause it to get all black. So you can be a little bit liberal in the first pass because we're going to take an eraser now and go back in and pull back some of this darkness. Alright, so let's take an eraser. Let's get that same kind of brush head, and we'll just bring up both sides of the brush, and we'll just go in and rein it back in a little bit. You want to make it as splotchy and as random as possible. You don't want to erase it too much, but you want to leave enough color information there where you can still see the damage you originally painted in. This is just to add a little bit of, extra oomph, more believability that this wall got blown to hell. Alright. And I like to do this 3 or 4 times just to make sure it's as random as possible. Having it darker in some places and lighter in the others is always a plus. So I like to go in and just isolate certain areas and make it real dark. Then I'll pull it back out later. Alright. We're getting there. I'm going to do one more little pass. Sometimes I like just to focus in and keep clicking it to get it as dark as possible. So I'll click it once or twice and just get that little splotch in. Add a little bit down here. And then we'll go in and unsplotch it in some places. Having differences of value here, having it dark and light, is going to be the key to selling this. Because, carbon scoring isn't always just pure black everywhere. So splotchy is the name of the game here. Alright, cool. Uh-oh, insides of my window here. If you'll notice, I've kind of designed it where the inside of my windows are largely untouched from damage. But, fire or flame still could lick into it around the corner. So we won't have any hardcore sculpted damage in here. But it doesn't say we can't add a little bit of burn damage from whenever the initial explosion that ripped it up happened. And I'm just being very liberal here. But, it's very minor. Oh, let me go back. Very minor damage. Maybe have one area where it's just ultimate destroyed. Keep in mind this is also going to be mirrored as well. Alright. And you can take time now to go in and add more like scrapes or pockets and little other variations. But for brevity's sake, on this lesson, I'm just going to go ahead and call it a day on my diffuse texture, so I can start teaching you how we can get some good specular maps. And we're going to get our specular maps, much like we got our ambient occlusion maps, straight from the normal. So Endo is really powerful when it comes to creating specular maps. So before I call it a day, let's see our results. maybe I'll go in and decrease my opacity a little bit. It looks like I need to come in here and really blacken up my damage texture as well. So I can take a second and do that. We ain't over yet. Alright, let me just hide my mask at normal. Alright. So I'm not going to adjust the opacity quite yet, but I am going to come in here and really just blacken this up, because this is where most of the fire occurred. And you're saying, well, now you're just covering up all that work you did, getting the color variation in there. Well, yep, that's true. Layering your layering stuff in any kind of art piece just adds that much more fullness to it and life to it. So don't be afraid to cover stuff up and rework things over and over again. Alright, and let me go in and maybe adjust the opacity. I think it was a little too stark that first time through. Alright, I think this will be great. Control Shift F2, mass save. I mean, imagine me going back and saving the diffuse every time I want to preview it. Alright, cool. And for all intents and purposes, we're done with our diffuse right now. That'll be good enough. I mean, this looks pretty damaged and junked up and gross, so I'm happy with it. Alright, so next lesson we're going to get into start making specularity maps, and I'll explain some of the reasons why we have them and how they work.